Trade talks are escalating surrounding the Milwaukee Bucks following their brutal 1-6 start. And this report that has surfaced has a lot of Bucks fans fired up, and the trade target might surprise you. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, quick reminder, hit the subscribe button. If you're part of the 80% who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Bucks content, and we're on the road to 1,500 subscribers. Thank you guys for your continued support. But let's dive right into it. There's a lot to go over today. Most importantly, the Bucks do play tonight against the also 1-6 Utah Jazz. And if the Bucks lose tonight, I don't know what I'm going to do, but we're going to discuss a trade rumor today and a report that has come out and is surrounding the Milwaukee Bucks and Bobby Portis. And obviously Bobby Portis has gotten off to a very shaky start this season for the Milwaukee Bucks. He's had a couple of okay games, but like I discussed in yesterday's video, he's been one of the worst defenders in all of the NBA, as well as one of the worst advanced analytics guys for offense as well. But we can just dive right into it. So it's a mock trade between the Bucks and Blazers, and we also have another one that came out from a different analyst that we'll get into in a minute here. But this one is super intriguing, and I think it makes some sense for the Milwaukee Bucks. So the trade, it's a mock trade between the Bucks and Blazers, and this, of course, from Miracle saying one high-risk mock trade the Bucks could pursue to strengthen their defense, which is obviously their biggest concern at this point. It is Robert Williams for a 2026 second and a 2027 second-round pick, and the Portland Trail Blazers receive Bobby Portis. So essentially what you'd be doing is swapping Bobby Portis for Robert Williams on your team, and then, of course, the Trail Blazers do this because they're getting two second-round picks that are not Milwaukee's. They are the one they acquired from Memphis and the one they acquired from the New York Knicks. So this is super intriguing, and again, as you look into everybody and look into the different players, we obviously know Bobby Portis this season has had a very interesting start to the year. He's been a guy who, at times for the Milwaukee Bucks over the past handful of seasons, has had a serious impact and has actually done very good, but also at times this year and for most of the games this year has been a complete liability on defense, has given really the Bucks absolutely nothing on the defensive end. He's had some okay offensive games, but when you're looking at the advanced analytics behind it, he's posting up at an absurd clip, and he's not being efficient when he is posting up. And what the problem with that is of course, while you post up, you're not really giving much options for your two actual good scorers in Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard. So it gets very interesting, his fit alongside this team, and it's why a lot of fans out there are clamoring for a Milwaukee Bucks Bobby Portis trade. And that's why this trade does make some sense. And you're getting back Robert Williams. Now, obviously, Robert Williams has been injury prone, but in his prime, he's still fairly young. He was obviously a very good rebounding and defensive, power forward / center for the Boston Celtics back in the day. And he would really anchor this defense in a way that they haven't had in a very long time. They obviously have Brook Lopez, who anchors the defense, at least regarding blocks and guarding the bigger guys. But when you're looking at Robert Williams, he is an athletic player, and he could actually help really solve a big problem that the Bucks have. You can see this here. The Milwaukee Bucks currently ranked 23rd in opponent points per game, remaining consistent with the defensive issues that led to the dismissal of Adrian Griffin. And that hasn't really been fixed or changed much under Doc Rivers either. Despite the Bucks losing their two games against the Cavs by a combined 3 points, they haven't improved on defense. In fact, the Bucks have given up over 110 points every game since the season opener. And we know how the season opener went. It was their only win of the season. And as they aim to fix these issues, the Bucks could do the funniest thing. Take a page out of the Celtics books. The Bucks could grab a player that the Celtics used to acquire Drew Holiday after the Bucks sent him to the Blazers in the Dame trade. So, yeah, you'd be looking at, I don't know necessarily that 2 second-round picks is enough for Robert Williams, but if you are the Portland Trail Blazers, maybe they look to flip Bobby Portis to a different team, maybe for a second again. So then you're getting 3 second-round picks for Robert Williams, which is intriguing, but I don't know that the Portland Trail Blazers would accept a deal like this at the current juncture. But again, he is a very solid player. So comparing the two, you can look at the size difference. Bobby Portis is 6'10", 250. Robert Williams is 6'9", 237. Similar size. It's just that Robert Williams is way more athletic, way better defensively, and he's not quite as skilled, I will say, offensively. He doesn't really have a post game, but he can pick and roll. His pick and roll defense is way better. He can, on offense, he can run pick and rolls with Dame, get to the rim, be a bit of a slasher in that front. And again, the trade-off becomes Bobby Portis' offense for Williams' defense. He was a six-man of the year candidate, Bobby Portis that was, but hasn't really done much this season. But he's been solid. But the thing with Robert Williams is he would actually be able to guard really 2 through 5, depending on who the 5 is. Like, he's a lot faster than a lot of people think, and he's a lot better defensively. And for the Milwaukee Bucks team that is deploying a lineup of Damian Lillard, Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince, Giannis when he's healthy, and Brook Lopez, it's an interesting dynamic to be able to add Robert Williams in. Now, whether Robert Williams would start is still up in the air. There is a world where maybe they've run some small ball lineups with Robert Williams sliding to the 5. He's obviously only 6'9", so sliding to the 5 might be a bit more difficult to do. But depending on the path they want to take going forward, it could make some sense. But at the very least, once the team is healthy, you'll have a lineup, of course, of Dame, Chris Middleton, probably Taurean Prince, Giannis, and Brook Lopez. And then if you have a bench of Robert Williams as your backup power forward, I think it adds a lot more versatility to the team, especially when you're running different starting lineups alongside, obviously later in the game with Dame and then Giannis. And then if you have a guy like Robert Williams, it would be very good defensively. Now, the only issue with this is that unlike Bobby Portis, who can shoot the ball a little bit, Robert Williams has no outside game. So you would really have an offense to run him in pick and roll action with Damian Lillard, or else he can't really just hover. Because the Brook Lopez is another guy who can shoot the ball well. All of the Bucks big men have the ability to shoot at this point. Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez. If you add in a guy who can't shoot, it's interesting because then now you know that we obviously know Giannis is not, he's a capable shooter at times, but his goal is to get to the paint. So the reason they haven't went with an athletic defensive center is because, or power forward in this case, is because obviously they don't want to clog the paint for Giannis Antetokounmpo when he drives in and does all those things. So it would be an interesting fit alongside Giannis, but the bigger, problem or the bigger thing here is, of course, getting better defensively. And of course, with Damian Lillard, you'd have the spacing that could probably help complement and help kind of justify the Robert Williams trade. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on this trade. It is a super interesting one. And again, Robert Williams would bring pick and roll value, which is something I mentioned earlier. He'd be good in the pick and roll. They'd be able to run it. And over his career, he's averaged 7, and almost 2 blocks a game. 7th in defensive player of the year voting in 2021. So if he gets healthy and he's a healthy option, the Milwaukee Bucks could really use a guy like this if they can figure out how to blend him in with, obviously, Giannis Antetokounmpo. But speaking of another report, an article that dropped, it's the Bucks predicted to cut ties with Brook Lopez via trade to Pelicans. And on a recent episode of the Bill Simmons podcast, they discussed the state of the Bucks, with House urging Milwaukee to clean house by trading as many of their guys as possible, including Brook Lopez. And again, this is more of a rumor than a report, but it's very interesting. And they basically link Brook Lopez saying they should just trade him to the New Orleans Pelicans, which could be interesting. The team is dead. That is dead on a rival team. I disagree with that. I still think the team has a lot of potential. They have a couple picks to work with. Obviously, their 2031 first is their most, their 2031 first round pick is their most prominent pick and their most valuable pick. But it's interesting because now Brook Lopez's name is getting involved in trade talks. And I could see a world where they do ship off Brook Lopez and they try to go with a different type of center. That being said, like in theory and on paper, Brook Lopez fits the best with this Milwaukee Bucks team because of his ability to stretch the floor. But defensively in the pick and roll, he's not great. Offensively in the pick and roll, he doesn't do a whole lot either because he's super slow. But he can pop well. He can protect the paint, via blocks and things like that. But I think looking at it, Robert Williams could be a very interesting fit. Now, maybe arguably a better fit for this team right now than a Brook Lopez, simply because of their defense. And again, if they're able to run pick and rolls with Damon and Robert Williams, or pick and rolls with Giannis and Robert Williams, again, 2 non-shooters really, but you could definitely get some things going with Giannis' downhill ability. Could be very interesting going forward to see what, again, pairing Giannis' downhill ability with Robert Williams' great pick and roll action and defense. Let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are on this, what your thoughts are on a potential Brook Lopez trade, and hopefully the Bucks can take care of business for all of our sanity against the Jazz tonight.